All right, let's dive right into this explainer and uncover a seriously alarming hidden link. Look, we live in a world where sweet treats and sugary drinks are practically a childhood staple, right? They're at every birthday party, tucked into every lunchbox. But what if these seemingly harmless little indulgences are actually robbing kids of their physical development? Today, we're unpacking some truly eye-opening research that shifts the blame for developmental issues away from environmental pollution and points it directly at our own pantries. Now, while we all know sugar can cause cavities and give kids that crazy temporary energy rush, we urgently need to talk about a hidden danger, one that is prematurely aging children and literally shutting down their bone development. When we think about stunted growth, our minds usually go straight to extreme cases of malnutrition. But the research we're looking at today, it reveals a completely different, almost invisible culprit. We're talking about everyday sugars and artificial sweeteners acting as a biological trigger, fundamentally altering the natural timeline of a child's bodily development. Section 1. The hidden growth barrier.
So, there's this groundbreaking research out of Wanfeng Hospital in Taipei, highlighted by the renowned Taiwanese nephrologist Dr. Jiang Shushan, and it links common artificial sweeteners to severe bodily disruptions. Dr. Jiang brought this absolutely critical issue to light, pointing out a fascinating but honestly deeply concerning pattern. Through careful observation and clinical data, researchers discovered that kids who frequently consume drinks loaded with sugars or artificial substitutes aren't just gaining weight. No, they're experiencing a radical shift in their developmental clocks. They're actually entering their reproductive years far earlier than nature ever intended.
Okay, so the absolutely crucial point here is understanding this condition, central precocious puberty, or CPP for short. It acts exactly like a heavy door slamming shut way too early on a child's bone development. Here's how this incredibly deceptive condition works. A child with CPP might actually be the tallest kid in their class at first, because the early onset of puberty triggers this initial rapid growth spurt. But and here's the catch, that exact same hormonal surge causes their bones to mature and close up much faster than normal. And once those bones close, that's it. The growth completely stops. The tragic result is that the child finishes their growth phase prematurely, ultimately standing much shorter as an adult than their DNA had originally planned for.
Section 2. Science of early puberty.
Here is the biological chain reaction at play. Common artificial sweeteners, things like aspartame and sucralose, alter the gut microbiome and brain cells. This causes a massive hormone imbalance, ultimately forcing those bones to close prematurely. When a kid drinks a diet soda or some artificially sweetened juice, those chemicals enter the digestive tract. But instead of just passing right through, they essentially destroy the delicate balance of microorganisms in the gut. This huge disruption sends abnormal signals throughout the entire body, interfering with internal system functions. The body just gets terribly confused and begins releasing sex hormones entirely off schedule, setting that premature bone closure right into motion.
But the tragedy doesn't stop at stunted growth. This unnatural early development leaves kids vulnerable to severe stress, massive mood swings, and long-term metabolic illnesses. Just imagine being an 8-year-old trying to deal with the emotional and physical surges of a teenager. I mean, the psychological toll is immense. Kids with CPP are highly susceptible to mental health struggles and sudden mood swings simply because their brains just aren't ready for the hormones flooding their systems. And furthermore, looking at the long-term picture, this disruption hardwires their bodies for a much higher risk of developing chronic metabolic and reproductive diseases when they become adults. It's a lifelong consequence, all stemming from early dietary habits.
Section 3. Boys versus girls.
To really grasp the massive scale of this problem, researchers tracked 1,407 youths in Taiwan, starting back in 2018, to observe the exact impact of these dietary habits over time. Now, this wasn't just some small, isolated study. By following over 1,400 children over several years, the medical teams were able to identify undeniable, concrete patterns. They linked exactly what these kids were eating and drinking to their precise stages of physical development.
And shockingly, 481 of those tracked children, that's roughly 1 in 3, were officially diagnosed with early puberty. Just take a second to let that statistic sink in. Over a third of the kids in this extensive study were experiencing abnormal, accelerated development. This clearly demonstrates that central precocious puberty isn't some rare genetic anomaly that only affects a tiny fraction of people. No, it's becoming a common, widespread developmental crisis, fueled directly by our modern dietary habits.
Now, what's really fascinating and honestly a bit scary is how this threat adapts across genders. Boys face extreme risks primarily from sucralose, while girls' growth genes are heavily triggered by a wider array of substances, including glyceric acid, sucralose, and extra added sugars. The research shows these chemicals act as specific triggers stimulating brain cells and growth genes. For boys, the artificial sweetener sucralose clearly spiked their risk. But for girls, the danger zone is even broader. They are severely impacted by everyday added sugars, sucralose, and glyceric acid, which is a sweet compound often used in foods and snacks. But in both cases, the result is exactly the same. The body is tricked into prematurely releasing sex hormones, completely derailing their natural age-appropriate growth trajectory.
Section 4. Protecting our children. So the solution is an immediate dietary swap. We need to thoroughly eliminate artificial snacks and sweet drinks and replace them with plain water and moderate amounts of fresh juice. To safeguard a child's full height potential and their long-term health, regular consumption of synthetically sweetened drinks and snacks literally must be stopped. It is an absolute priority to shift their habits towards drinking good old plain water. And hey, if you want to offer something sweet, natural, freshly squeezed fruit juice is totally acceptable, provided it's kept in appropriate, strict moderation. Knowing the permanent consequences that a temporary sweet treat can have on a child's lifelong health and height, how will you rethink your family's pantry today? It's kind of incredible to realize that something as seemingly innocent as a brightly colored diet soda or a sweet snack can fundamentally alter the way a child's bones grow and close. We've seen how these hidden barriers don't just rob children of their genetic height, but set them up for a literal lifetime of metabolic challenges. The science is incredibly clear on this. The power to protect their natural development isn't found in a pharmacy, it's right there in the grocery cart. So the next time you reach for that artificially sweetened beverage for your kids, I really want you to remember this explainer and ask yourself, is this temporary sweetness really worth the permanent cost to their growth?